Hello and welcome to lecture number 47, which covers topic 3.12, photography and social change. This will be a relatively short lecture with one learning objective: explain how African Americans used visual media in the 20th century to enact social change. As the title suggests, we'll be focusing specifically on the role of photography. Before this period, racist representations were frequently used to justify the mistreatment and segregation of African Americans under Jim Crow laws. This dated back to minstrel shows where white actors who wore blackface to portray caricatures of African Americans in degrading ways. One infamous example of a racist media was D.W. Griffith's 1915 film, The Birth of a Nation. The film glorified the Ku Klux Klan and portrayed African Americans in demeaning and dangerous stereotypes. The film received significant opposition from black communities in northern cities, including attempts to secure court injunctions to prevent its screening in areas with large black populations. Ida B. Wells Barnett was one such activist who fought to keep the film from being shown, recognizing its potential to fuel racial violence and perpetuate harmful stereotypes. The Birth of a Nation spurred protests across the country, leading to increased activism and calls for censorship of such dangerous depictions. In response to these racist portrayals, African American scholars, artists, and activists began to counter these images by creating visual media that emphasized resilience, dignity, and refinement. Photographers took an active role in reshaping the perception of African Americans, capturing everyday life and portraying their subjects in ways that asserted their humanity and worth. During this period, photography was not as accessible as it is today. It required specialized skills and a long development process. By simply taking photographs of ordinary African Americans, especially in moments of joy, learning, or relaxation, these photographs were making a political statement about the intrinsic value of Black life. Their work reflected dignity and respectability, especially when photographing the emerging Black middle class in northern cities. A key figure in this movement was James Van Der Zee, whose work primarily focused on the Harlem community in New York City. His images often depicted African Americans in fine clothing or engaged in intellectual and cultural activities, helping to create a new positive image of African Americans during the New Negro movement. Van Der Zee's work was important for the broader cultural project of the Harlem Renaissance, which sought to reshape Black identity and counter negative stereotypes. During the Negro movement, photographers like James Van Der Zee sought to create a distinctive Black aesthetic that portrayed their subjects with dignity, grace, and strength. Their work often highlighted the beauty of everyday Black life, whether at home, labor, or leisure. These photographers connected their arts to a broader narrative of Black resilience and strength, frequently depicting African Americans not as people defined by slavery or oppression, but as proud heirs to a rich cultural legacy. This reconceptualization of African American identity was key in challenging the pervasive myths of Black inferiority that had dominated American popular media and culture for decades. Photographers like Van Der Zee played a crucial role in rewriting the visual history of Black Americans, offering images that countered the demeaning stereotypes perpetuated in minstrel shows and films like The Birth of a Nation. Through their work, they demonstrated that African Americans were not only surviving, but thriving, with intellectual, cultural, and social lives as rich as any other community. This visual affirmation of Black dignity was a form of resistance to the systemic racism that had sought to dehumanize African Americans. In addition to capturing the Black middle class, photographers also documented key aspects of folk culture, including music, dance, religious practices, and family gatherings. These images celebrated Black cultural expression from gospel choirs to jazz musicians, reinforcing a sense of pride in African heritage. Gospel music, which evolved from spirituals, played a significant role in the cultural life of African Americans and became a powerful symbol of faith and resilience. Photographers captured not only the joy and passion of these performances, but also the sense of community they fostered. In many cases, stage portraits in photography studios integrated African motifs, garments, and artifacts, visually connecting African Americans with their African roots and highlighting a sense of cultural continuity. This artistic choice was especially significant during a time when African Americans were often denied their cultural heritage by a society that pushed assimilation into white norms. By incorporating African symbols and aesthetics, these photographs made a powerful statement about the importance of reclaiming African heritage as a source of pride, rather than something to be hidden or suppressed. These photographs not only served as personal keepsakes for those who sat for portraits, but also as political statements, rejecting the narrative of racial inferiority and marginalization. In this sense, the work of photographers during the New Negro movement and the Harlem Renaissance was a critical part of the broader cultural effort to redefine what it means to be African American. Now let's dive more deeply into James Van Der Zee, the photographer whose work has been featured throughout this lecture. Van Der Zee was instrumental in recasting global perceptions of African Americans, illustrating the core qualities of the new Negro in his portraits. His subjects often exuded self-confidence, intellectual engagement, and a refusal to accept the social limitations imposed upon them. This was particularly evident in his famous portraits of Marcus Garvey, leader of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, or the UNIA, and his followers known as Garveyites. In these images, Garvey and his followers are depicted in military-style uniforms, symbolizing strength and resistance and racial pride. These images reinforced Garvey's vision of black self-reliance and empowerment, and were not only personal mementos for Garveyites, but also visual declarations of their political and ideological commitments. Vanderzee's photographs helped solidify Garvey's message that African Americans could and should stand tall against oppression, asserting pride in their heritage and future. James Vanderzee's personal journey into photography is also notable. He initially aspired to be a violinist, but transitioned into photography after moving to New York City with his father at the age of 20. Though he briefly moved away, he returned to Harlem where he built a successful career documenting Black life in all its dimensions, capturing labor, leisure, study, worship, and home life. His Harlem studio became a space where Black clients could have their photographs taken in a way that reflected their dignity, aspirations, and personal pride. Vanderzee meticulously posed his subject. He paid close attention to their clothing, posture, and setting to ensure that the photographs exuded the elegance and respectability central to the New Negro aesthetic. For instance, Vanderzee often used elaborate backdrop, fine furnishings, and personal accessories to elevate the status of his subjects in the portraits, giving them an air of affluence and refinement. This was especially powerful during an era where African Americans were often denied access to such symbols of success and sophistication. We've mentioned that he has a particularly famous portrait of Marcus Garvey, but he also photographed the poet Countee Cullen and dancer Bill Bojangles Robinson. All of his photographs highlighted the beauty, dignity, and liberated spirit of African Americans. His portrait of Bojangles, for example, captures the renowned dancer's grace and pride, reflecting both his personal success and the larger cultural significance of Black excellence in performance arts during the Harlem Renaissance. Some of the images that are on the screen include a 1909 photograph of African American students and a 1920s photograph of a Harlem swim team. These showcase African Americans not only engaged in activities seen as respectable for the time, but also simply enjoying life, an often overlooked aspect of Black existence in this era. The swim team's portrait, in particular, challenges stereotypes by showing young Black boys as athletes and achieves a dignified and professional context, rather than as laborers or subjugated individuals. These images reflect a radical departure from the usual representation of Black people in the mainstream media, which typically emphasized hardship or subjugation. By capturing moments of joy, achievement, and community, Vanderzee's work offered a revolutionary portrait of Black life that celebrated resilience, humanity, and success. Vanderzee's photography played a crucial role in creating a visual counter-narrative to the negative portrayals of African Americans that were common in American culture. His work aligned with the broader goals of the Harlem Renaissance, emphasizing that African Americans were not only worthy of respect and equality, but were also contributors to American culture, intellect, and society. And finally, for the recap, photography was used to counter racist representations that were used to justify the mistreatment and Jim Crow segregation. A distinctive Black aesthetic in photography was grounded in the beauty of everyday Black life, history, folk culture, and pride in African heritage. And James Vanderzee's recast the global perceptions of African Americans by further illustrating the qualities of the New Negro. Thank you for watching. If you would like to watch the next lecture, click the thumbnail on the screen. And if you would like more resources to help you study, you can visit apushlights.com/AFAM. I wish you the best of luck with your studies, and I hope to see you back on the next lecture.